Food Security by Nick Herbert. There are many areas where harvest loss occur. Some of these areas include on the field and animal consumption. Both of these areas of loss occur before the food from the harvest even makes it to the market. 1 out of 9, or 11%, of all food produce is lost on the field. Most of the time this is due to perfectly edible food being thrown away due to the way it looks. For example, a watermelon farmer says, "We throw away half of them, which is really sad, but I would say on average maybe 75% get packed and 25% have defects, flaws." Animal food consumption attributes to 2 out of 9, or 22%, of all food loss around the world. 33% of all food grown around the world is fed to animals to produce meat. These animals in turn produce 11% of the food around the world. Not all parts of the animal are even eaten. For example, 61% of a cow is edible, but the retail cuts only attribute to 43% of the cow. Retail cuts are the average types of beef one buys from a store. This means that a 1,000-pound cow will only yield 430 pounds of meat on average in the United States. Developing countries experience more post-harvest loss than developed countries. This is due to many factors that include handling, processing, and distribution. Post-harvest loss is broken down into these 3 categories. The mishandling of food in underdeveloped countries accounts for 40% of post-harvest loss, whereas processing accounts for 31% and distribution accounts for 29%. Underdeveloped countries experience these problems more than developed countries due to lack of technology and/or modern agricultural knowledge. Developing countries experience more gains from their livestock than countries that are already developed. This is due mainly to 2 factors: the amount of feed developing countries use to raise livestock and the amount of each animal that is eaten. Developing countries feed livestock less than developed countries, which in turn leads to less food loss. Developing countries also do not waste as much of the animal as developed countries. This means that these countries eat almost the entire animal, whereas developed countries waste most of the available meat produced. Engineers can help limit the amount of post-harvest loss in both developing and developed countries in many ways. One way they can do this is simply by helping to inform people about this problem. This can be done in both developed and underdeveloped countries. Engineers can inform the public of food loss and try to change the culture of only eating food that looks perfect. By doing this, farmers can stop throwing away produce that is edible but has appearance flaws. Engineers can also inform and teach developing countries how to handle, process, and distribute produce in the most efficient way to minimize food loss in their countries. Engineers can also help limit the amount of food loss contributed by animal consumption in both developing and developed countries in many ways. This can be done by finding more efficient animal feed. By finding feed that is 1, easy to produce with limited effect on the environment, unlike corn, and 2, allows for most benefits for the livestock, as in the nutrients the livestock needs to grow healthily. Developed nations can cut down on the amount of food needed to feed livestock. Also, if engineers engineer ways to use parts of the animal, then less food will go to waste. This can be done by informing the public and creating dishes that use the wasted parts of the animal, like cow's tongues.